IBC, Dale Gatefold 33 here with another video, and this is a thread video. I've already done this thread a few years ago, I'm sure I have, but yeah, so Dylan from Noble Records started a thread about connecting 20 records, and Harris Pilton had a go at it, and I'm sure I've done it. One of my early videos when I first got into making videos took about three or so years ago, so I've done it sometime in the last 3 years, and I did a very kind of lazy but ingenious where I did the color palette of album covers in a circle back to the beginning, so you know, blue to green on one album, which goes then green to brown on another album, which might go brown to red on another, which might go red to yellow on another, and circled all the way back round. So anyway, so I'll have a proper go. It was a wet, well, the sun's just coming out. It's a wet bank holiday Monday. I've had a really busy bank holiday weekend with family and stuff. So yeah, so I've been listening to records this morning and wasted several hours trying to pull this together. Partly because I got it absolutely nailed where I thought, yeah, well, not nailed. I got it okay with a nice flow, and then I realised I only had 19 records. And so therefore I had to kind of rip a couple out and slot some in, and it's gone all clunky now, unfortunately. Anyway, I'll start in a minute. Yeah, so yeah, this has been fairly interesting while I've been listening to records, something to do. I have had to dig into sort of my brain, but also my the internet, my catalogue, my spreadsheet, all sorts of things to try and find some connections, particularly when I was struggling. I've kind of got there now. So and yeah, and some of these connections, you're going down a dark little country lane thinking, oh my god, where am I going to go next? And you might even end up going up a cul-de-sac and having to reverse back out and continue on, and then suddenly the trees open and you're at a huge roundabout with many different ways you can go, and then you're back on a country road again, wondering where you're going to go next. And we'll start with one of those huge roundabouts where you can go in many different directions. So my first connection, this is what I'm going to connect back to at the end. I'm going to try and do what Harris did and connect back to this. So this has got so many opportunities of where you can connect. This is obviously needs no introduction, but Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This is an original mono, first press. And so what am I going to do with this? I'm going to go with Jeff Emerick, who engineered this record. Is my opening connection, or opening start of the connections. Jeff Emerick also, these are new glasses, so I shouldn't need to keep pushing them up. But I do. I need them to get readjusted. I only got them on Saturday. Anyway, sorry. Jeff Emerick also produced Elvis Costello's Imperial Bedroom, and all the songs on Imperial Bedroom were written by Elvis Costello, apart from Boy with a Problem, which was co-wrote with Chris Difford. Chris Difford of Squeeze. And this is Squeeze singles, and one of the singles that Squeeze had was Labelled with Love. Labelled with Love was covered by Kevin Rowland on his My Beauty album. Isn't he a beauty there? And this was his sort of comeback, coming out of the depths of drug issues. He made an album of covers of songs that had kept him alive or sane during that period, and one of them that he covered was Labelled with Love. So Kevin Rowland of Dex's Midnight Runners. This is a kind of clunky gear change moment. Dex's Midnight Runners, famous for the song Gino, a tribute to Gino Washington. Gino Washington features, it says featuring Gino Washington on one of the songs on this album, taken from the Matt Berry box set, Gather Up box set. So this is the Rarities and Unreleased, and so there's a song, Catch Me in Time, featuring Gino Washington. So this is where there's my I'm showing 21 records. I'm having to show 2 Matt Berry records to keep the connection going. So Matt Berry also, one of his albums he did was television themes. So yeah, he did obviously Doctor Who and Rainbow, but he also did Top of the Pops. So Top of the Pops, theme that Matt Berry did, originally written or co-written by Phil Lynott of Thin Lizzy. So this is a Thin Lizzy album. This is Nightlife, and the strings are arranged on this album by Jimmy Horowitz. Jimmy Horowitz was married in the 70s to the singer-songwriter Leslie Duncan, and Leslie Duncan provides backing vocals on Rotten Peaches, on the Elton John's Madman Across the Water album. And the opening track of this album, Tiny Dancer, is prominent in the film Almost Famous, about Cameron Crowe's Cameron Crowe film, kind of semi-autobiographical, I think. And a star of that film, one of the lead roles in that film, is played by Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson, Almost Famous is one of those, is a roundabout, another big roundabout where I could have gone in multiple directions. I've gone with Kate Hudson, one of the stars. Kate Hudson was married for a while to Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes. This is the Black Crowes Shake Your Money Maker album, and one of the tracks on here is a cover version of Hard to Handle that was co-written by Otis Redding, the soul singer, Stax Atlantic Vault soul singer. And Otis Redding was often, as a kind of Stax, from the Stax stable, often backed on his albums by Booker T and the MGs. So this is Melting Pot by Booker T and the MGs. Booker T and the MGs were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1992. One of their co-inductees in 1992 was the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So this is the debut album, Are You Experienced, the UK version. This is a mono reissue, music on vinyl. So Jimi Hendrix Experience were managed by Chaz Chandler, ex of the Animals, and Chaz Chandler produced the first Soft Machine's first album, and that album, obviously Soft Machine at that point, one of the prominent members on drums was Robert Wyatt. Robert Wyatt provides some vocals on David Gilmour's On an Island album. He sings on second track on side 2, Then I Close My Eyes. David Gilmour is notable obviously for being in Pink Floyd, but also notable for having some influence on the career of Kate Bush and getting her signed to EMI using his influence. And this album by Kate Bush, 50 Words for Snow, was mastered, oh, I hope it was, engineered, mastered, something like that, by Doug Sachs, a legendary mastering engineer who was also involved, so it goes, I can't find exactly how deeply he was involved, but he was involved in the mastering, engineering of the Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers. The Rolling Stones were, at the beginning of the Rolling Stones, they were college, certainly at college, at different times. Keith Richards and Mick Jagger were kind of acquainted with, friends with Dick Taylor and Phil May from the Pretty Things, and you know, there but for the grace of God, the Pretty Things could have been the big artists, not the Rolling Stones, but they went in slightly different directions, and the Pretty Things, whilst a hugely revered band, did not have the commercial success of the Rolling Stones. So the Pretty Things, I say friends, or that formation, friends with the Rolling Stones. This is SF Sorrow, you know, often cited as being one of the first kind of rock operas. So SF Sorrow by the Pretty Things allegedly influenced Pete Townsend in going on to write Tommy by The Who, and clunky gear change coming up. The Who also went on in the 1980 to put out a film, McVicar. That the music on that film was heavily responsible for the music on that film, or involved, was Jeff Wayne. Jeff Wayne is most famous for War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds featured a number of rock and pop artists in it, notably singing Forever Autumn was Justin Hayward. Justin Hayward was a member of the Moody Blues. This is their album, 1968 album, In Search of a Lost Chord. And one of the tracks on this album is titled Dr. Livingston, I Presume. And circling back round to Sgt. Pepper's, the huge roundabout of connections, and around there is one of the people featured on the front of Sgt. Pepper is Dr. David Livingstone. So that's the connection, the circle completed. 21 Records, A Morning Wasted. Cheers, VC. Bye.